What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with the stats of the guns in Call of Duty Vanguard, and in today's episode we're going to be covering the brand new RA225 SMG. And starting it off as always, let's get into our damage profile. With this gun, if we're hitting torso shots, it's going to be a 4, 5, or 6 shot kill depending on the range. And with headshots, you need at least 2 headshots mixed in with torso shots at any range to reduce the number of shots to kill, and therefore, generally speaking, going for headshots isn't going to be your best bet with this gun. As for our rate of fire, it's quite fast at 845 rounds per minute, and what this means to our time to kill potential is in the 4-shot kill range, it's going to be killing in 213 milliseconds, and that's quite a competitive time to kill for an SMG up close. It's not the fastest in the game, but it's nowhere near the slowest either. And when we factor in those headshots, if we manage to land 2 headshots mixed in with a body shot, we get a 3-shot kill, and our time to kill potential in this case will be 142 milliseconds, which is very fast. As for our bullet velocity, this is just standard for SMGs at 353 meters per second. And then let's get into our range values. And with this gun, we've got a roughly 14 meter 4-shot kill potential. Then our 5-shot kill range will extend out to 31 meters. And then beyond that, it'll be a 6-shot kill. This is fairly standard for an SMG. As for hardcore game modes, unfortunately, the RA225 can only get a 1-shot kill to the neck or the head, and that will only reach out to 31 meters. In any other situation or any other part of the body, it's going to take you 2 shots to kill with this gun. After that, let's have a look at our hipfire, and as you can see here, it falls basically right in the middle of SMGs. It's tied with the Owen as well as the H4 Blixen. And then let's get into our idle sway, which is again, fairly standard for an SMG. There's definitely a bit of movement while aiming down sight. Now, moving on to recoil, there's not a ton of recoil with this gun. It does kick basically straight upwards with just a little bit of horizontal deviation as it climbs upwards. Overall, you should have no problem controlling this gun in the standard SMG ranges. You just might struggle a bit if you're really trying to stretch it out to the longer ranges. As for our handling stats, our aim down sight time is amazing at 180 milliseconds. That's a huge upside with this gun. Whereas our sprint to fire time is pretty much average for SMGs at 167 milliseconds. Then taking a look at our reload add time, once again, we're within the realm of average for an SMG here, nothing out of the ordinary. And now let's get into our mobility stats, which are a little bit above average across the board for SMGs, and that's definitely an upside with this gun as well. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for the base stats of this gun. However, there's one little unique characteristic that I've noticed, or potential bug actually with this gun. Maybe this will get adjusted, or maybe it won't. One thing I noticed immediately when I started playing with this is compared to the other guns in the game, there is a ton of muzzle smoke. So not so much muzzle flash, but it gets really hazy every time you shoot at your target. And this even happens with a suppressor, which tends to cut down on that. But I do notice that you often will lose your target as you start shooting at them because you've just got all of this haze in front of you every time you pull the trigger. So just something to be aware of with this gun. Hopefully they fix this, assuming it is actually a bug. And with that, we can now start moving into the unique attachments with this. And of course, we're going to be starting this off with barrels and the recoil that we'll see with each of these barrel attachments. And as we can see here, none of the barrels really massively increase or reduce the recoil, although the second barrel, that surge barrel, is quite nice to control our horizontal bounce. It's basically now just straight up with very little horizontal bounce. And you'll notice with the rapid barrel, the recoil plots actually cross over there a little bit, so there's a lot more randomness when it comes to that horizontal recoil. But overall, all of these are still quite controllable. As for ranges, it's quite interesting. None of these barrels have an impact on the damage range drop-offs for this gun. However, some of them do affect our damage and time to kill directly, so let's get into a little bit more detail with those two. The first one is that surge barrel, and this is a headshot barrel, so it's one of those barrels that boosts your headshot damage, but it harms your body damage. And with this up close, instead of a fairly consistent 4-shot kill, it's now going to be a 5 to 6-shot kill to the body, and that's pretty horrible. However, if you can mix one headshot in with your torso shots, you'll get a 3-shot kill for a time to kill potential of 142 milliseconds, which is very, very good. And if you manage to hit 2 headshots in a row up close, our time to kill is only 71 milliseconds, which is nearly instant. So just like with any of the headshot barrels that you see with the guns in this game, it's generally high risk, high reward. If you consistently land headshots, it's pretty incredible. However, the moment you don't land a headshot, you're going to find yourself in trouble. As for the only other barrel that directly impacts our time to kill potential, this is the 5th barrel, which is the rapid barrel, and this one increases our rate of fire to over 1,000 rounds per minute. And what this means is our 4-shot time to kill potential is now 174 milliseconds, which is a highly competitive time to kill up close. And even at mid-range, 232 milliseconds to kill is still pretty decent for an SMG. And when we have a look at the recoil again, like I said, there's a little bit of randomness. You don't know if it's going to drift to the left or to the right. It will be a bit random there, but if we are treating this for just up close and personal fights, this is still manageable enough recoil. You just lose a lot of that versatility at mid to longer ranges. So when it comes to this one, for aggressive builds, I'd say it's a great choice. And that right there wraps it up for the barrel attachments. Now let's move on to magazines, and again, we'll start this off with our recoil. As you can see here with 45 ACP, surprisingly, even though it's supposed to increase recoil, it doesn't really seem to be increasing it. The total magnitude is lower, and there really isn't a whole lot of horizontal bounce either, so that's nice to see. And then with 7.62 Gorenko, this definitely seems to tighten up the horizontal recoil a bit, so you are a bit more accurate with that. As for ranges, 45 ACP will increase our range values by 20%, whereas the 7.62 Gorenko will decrease our range values by 30%, which is pretty punishing. But let's take a deeper look at these, and we'll start this off with 45 ACP. So with this, our damage is boosted, so it's now a 3, 4, or 5-shot kill to the torso. Although at mid to longer ranges, it's not very forgiving. You have to hit every single shot to the torso, neck, or head. Our rate of fire is reduced down to 666 rounds per minute. And what this means is our time to kill with a 3-shot kill is 180 milliseconds, which is a great time to kill potential. At mid-range, it drops off to 232 milliseconds, which is still quite competitive at mid-range. And then at longer ranges, it's 290 milliseconds. When we also factor in the range increase, as well as the fact that the recoil isn't that bad for a higher caliber ammo type here, I would consider this to be a great choice for those close to mid-range engagements. The only thing is you're not really going to be hitting people at really long ranges. And another thing to mention is just to maintain consistency, it's often in your best interest to pair this with the hollow point attachment. That'll just make sure that it's always a 3, 4, or 5-shot kill, rather than having to make sure every single shot is hitting the torso at mid to longer ranges. As for the other caliber we can use, this is the 7.62 Gorenko, and with this, our body damage is reduced, so now it's going to be a 4 to 6-shot kill. And up close, in order to maintain that 4-shot kill potential, you have to hit every single bullet to the torso. 1 shot to the limb throws this off and turns it into a 5-shot kill. However, our rate of fire is increased up to 909 rounds per minute. We saw that our recoil is tightened up nicely, so we don't have as much horizontal bounce, and that helps quite a bit with controlling recoil. And our time to kill, assuming we get a 4-shot kill, is decent at 198 milliseconds. That's a very competitive time to kill. However, it does drop off very sharply down to 330 milliseconds. And when you factor in that range reduction as well, that 4-shot kill potential is very minimal. And as a result, I just can't really recommend using 7.62 Gorenko. I mean, maybe if you combine it with the vital proficiency, you can kind of make it work in your favor, but generally speaking, I would just stay away from this magazine. And that right there covers it for magazines. However, I also want to talk a bit about the vital proficiency. Now with this one, it basically just extends your headshot damage down to the upper torso as well as the shoulders. And when you do this with the base ammo type, it's now going to be a 3 to 4-shot kill as long as you're mixing in 2 upper torso shots. And this gives us a time to kill potential of 142 milliseconds for a 3-shot kill and 213 milliseconds for a 4-shot kill, which is incredible with this gun as long as you're consistent with hitting those upper torso shots, which you should be able to do fairly easily. And as a result, I would say this is generally an amazing choice. However, don't combine it with the headshot barrel. That screws up damage profiles and stuff. You still don't get that great headshot damage to the upper torso. It's just not worth it. I've done the math. And the same thing with higher caliber ammo, in this case 45 ACP. With any other setup though, I would definitely recommend using Vital. And there we have it. Those are all the important stats. Now we can move into some excellent attachment combinations. And the first one I'm going to share with you guys is my versatile build. I really like the RA25 with these attachments. And some of the keys here are going to be that vital proficiency. So we got to make sure we're landing some upper torso shots, which is generally pretty easy to do. We're using the standard 9mm, but I am using the drum, so we just have that extra magazine capacity for dealing with multiple enemies. We've got lengthened on there to help with our bullet velocity. We're using the needle barrel. It slightly improves our accuracy with this gun. And speaking of that, you can see just how accurate this is. It kicks pretty much straight upwards, very little side-to-side deviation. It's more accurate than the base version of the gun, and you can stretch out to decently long ranges and still be competitive with this against something like an assault rifle, so don't be afraid to stretch it out a bit. And finally, to top this off, we've got excellent handling and mobility and a very solid strafe speed as well. So this is just a really good all-around sort of a setup, and you'll likely be able to find quite a bit of success using the gun this way. As for the second setup I've got for you guys, this is my really aggressive build. So this one is really just designed for up close and personal fights. You're not going to want to try to challenge an assault rifle user at mid to longer ranges, but on the smaller maps, or if you just play super aggressively and always get yourself up close and personal, this thing is absolutely dominant. So with this, we're using 45 ACP combined with hollow point for a very consistent 3, 4, or 5 shot kill anywhere in the body. You can shoot them in the toe up close, and it's still going to be a 3-shot kill, which is nice. And we're also using the rapid barrel to help counteract that rate of fire reduction with 45 ACP to give us a great time to kill of 156 milliseconds up close. Again, anywhere in the body, you don't have to focus on hitting certain multipliers or anything. And then it does drop off to 234 milliseconds, which is still competitive, and then beyond that, this gun's not really viable due to the higher recoil that this has. Now you'll notice the vertical magnitude of recoil really isn't bad at all, however, it does sway side to side a lot, and that is what limits its effectiveness beyond those close to mid-range fights. But on top of that, we do have very solid handling, which helps with the aggressiveness of this gun. And if you manage to keep yourself within 17 meters, there's not a whole lot that's going to reliably compete in the time to kill potential against this, and therefore it's a very solid aggressive build that just lacks some versatility at longer ranges. And with that, that's finally going to wrap it up for today's gun guide on the brand new RA225 SMG. As for my thoughts on this gun, it's a fairly standard SMG. I mean, you can really make it work with the right attachments. It's a very solid gun, and even without attachments, it's decent. It holds its own just fine, but I just don't feel like it really stands out in any meaningful way. The one big thing I will say though is I hope they cut down on that muzzle smoke that comes out every time you fire the gun. That's one big downside over the other SMGs that I've noticed. But with that, of course, those are just my opinions, and I want to hear what you guys are thinking about this gun so far in the comments down below. And if you guys have missed any of the previous gun guides, I've already covered the other Season 5 weapons. I will leave a link to the playlist in the description down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.